Beautiful Labor Day morning, all my Rolexers out there. This is Eric V. Rolexer here with you outside of Clarksville, Georgia. We are at a museum, as you can see from the sign behind me. It's called Miles Through Time Automotive Museum. I think we've actually been to this one before. Years ago, not long after me and Teresa first got married. It used to be over in Helen, just outside of Helen, and we went through it. It was a great museum, and then the next time we were over there, it was gone, and we couldn't figure out what happened to it. We think this is where it actually moved to, was over here at Clarksville for some reason. But we're fixing to go in here and go through it and take y'all along. So come along and join us, if you will. My wife was actually talking to an employee who works here. Might have been one of the co-owners, I'm not sure. But anyway, they said that this bus here was from the movie Ghosted. Now, I don't know really anything about it. So if you know about the movie, have seen the movie, comment below and let us know. This is one of my passions right here. I actually used to fly years ago. I worked through my private pilot's license, worked up to commercial license, and was fixing to work on my instructor certificate. And 9/11 happened years ago, and so my dad actually flew, and I've been flying with him probably as far back as I can remember. We used to fly out of Copper Hill, Tennessee back in the days. If anybody knows that area, back in the 70s, that place used to be very barren. It looked like the surface of Mars, literally, because there was no trees or nothing like that. But anyway, I'm getting way off into left field. Sorry about that. But yeah, I've been flying with him for ages, and really had a passion for it myself and wanted to learn. And so he actually taught me a little bit before I started actually taking official flying lessons and stuff. He used to be an instructor back in World War II on B-24s, believe it or not. But yeah, this here, I'm not really sure what we're looking at. To me, it looks like some sort of a Cessna, but it may be like a Cessna 172, an older version. Those things have been workhorses for private pilots, in flight schools, I should say. And yeah, this looks like an older version of it. I'm not really sure. Someone out there who knows more about planes than I do, let me know in the comments section below what exactly we're looking at. But it looks like it's stripped down. Looks like a lot of the skin is off of it. I don't know if the wings may have been fabric at one time. That's why there's nothing left. It may have all rotted off. But yeah, you can tell the panel is pretty old, and looks like a lot of the gauges, all of the steam gauges are out of it. Yokes are still there, but the steam gauges are gone. Radios and everything else for the most part. But yeah, this reminds me of some of the not this bad a shape, and not this old either, but a lot of the planes that I have flown in and flown myself were very small like this. One of the first displays you see coming in the door of the museum itself is all of these old-time buggies, horse-drawn buggies and stuff, and very old stuff that looks like you have possibly an item that was used in a blacksmith shop for forging metal and stuff, iron, for horseshoes and buggies and all kinds of other stuff in here. So, like plows and just other types of buggies and all. It's like some sort of a sled here too. But yeah, up here it says the blacksmith and the rise of the automobile. You can stop it at any time and read this if you want to. Hold it on here long enough, you can get a good shot of it. You even got a buggy up on the wall right here. Going into the next section of the museum, you got what looks like possibly well, I don't know. Yep, Model T. It is a Model T. I was going to say it's a Model T, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to make sure. 1950 Model T three-door touring. And this one is set up as a police car here. So you've got the police on the side of it. Yep. And then you've got, I don't know if this is what this is here. This is a 1922 Ford Model T center door. So these are all different versions of the Model T, which was one of the first mass-produced vehicles that the working man could afford. So it looks like you might have an actual Model T coupe little child's car right there. See all the other things on the wall here. One of these may have been used in that movie there, Sweet Land. Not really sure. Replica of the 1910 Model T Ford. This was manufactured by McDonald Power Equipment in McDonough, Georgia, which was the manufacturer of Snapper lawnmowers. Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. This half-scale replica was built in 1959. Linda Spradlin, I know I'm butchering that, Miner's father, Stevens Ware Spradlin, worked there and brought this home for her to enjoy. She rode many of the streets of East Point, Georgia in her Model T as a child. Linda's husband, Johnny Milner, did some restoration, and years later she shared the Model T with David and Jane Story for their grandchildren to enjoy. At that time, David did more restoration since the top bows had been kept. David had a top made out of original top Model T fabric, and the seats were also upholstered. So that's the story of this little Model T here, half scale. Very interesting. I'll just show this thing right here. They have quite a collection of Model T Fords here in this first part of the museum. And this is a Ford Model T Roadster truck, 1927 model. And yeah, I like the steel in the back there. The old-timey steel. But yeah. Looks like you've got quite a collection of early tools and diagnostic equipment used on cars back in the day. Looks like some sort of a diagnostic and tuning piece of equipment. Of course, Mac toolbox and all. You've got all kinds of other stuff back over there on the corner. Quaker State Motor Oil signs and cans and all kinds of stuff back over there. Here you've got a 1928 Chevrolet Imperial. Owner Truett Phillips. Original price $715. And here's the car itself. That looks like a fairly nice car. Hard top. Very luxurious looking. Looks like something that some of the wealthier would have had back in the day. I guess that's a hard top with a vinyl covering over it. Here we've got a 1930 1.5 ton Chevrolet truck. And if this was the original coloring of it, it looks like it was probably used, obviously, by Coca-Cola, possibly as a delivery truck to deliver their product. But yeah, that's what it looks like anyway. These are really cool right here. These glass top fuel pumps that they used way back years ago. That is really neat. And the lights still work up at the top for the signs, Phillips, Ethel, and Phillips 66 over the far one right there. Very cool. I like that. Here's a 1927 Chrysler 70. That looks like a really nice car too. And it looks like it's been restored. Big old headlights there. That was back in the day whenever they used big emblems right on the hood. Here's something you don't see much of these days. It's an old payphone. Most of the time, if you ever see one, it's the phone itself has been ripped off, or at least the handset and the cord has been ripped off of it. And 99.999% of the time, it doesn't work anymore. Here's an old phone booth. Here, look at this. This is neat. Still got the phone in there. That looks like something that you would see possibly in an airport or a train station or something. That's really neat. And then you've got the old switchboard over here for phone systems years ago that was all manually operated by an operator, switching calls and patching calls through and stuff. Very neat. Very neat. Here's something over here in between these two other vehicles, this old jukebox. And it looks like it used actual large records instead of the smaller ones like you saw probably in the 50s and 60s. It looks like it used big records, either 78 or 33 1/3 RPM records. But those are very large platters that you don't see much of in jukeboxes, the later model jukeboxes. Now here's a very unusual car. It's a I want to get this right, 1924 Apperson 6 Sport sedan. And the original price was $1,535. And compared that to a 1924 Ford Model T, which is only $260. This is very unusual and I would say extremely rare, because I don't think they were in business for too awful long. That's pretty neat. They actually have a suitcase hanging on the sideboard of it. I've got a trunk back here attached to the back of it. Yeah, it looks like this one was very spacious on the inside compared to a Ford Model T for sure. Very, very nice. Very nice. I like the little bunny rabbit right there on the front. Now we're getting into the Ford Model A coupes here. Very reminiscent of the Ford Model Ts. And it's a 1930 Ford Model A. It's a Ford Model A Coupe Deluxe. And it costs $550. Oh my goodness, look at this wall of model cars. All kinds of model cars down through here. This is just crazy. All the model cars. It just goes on and on and on down through here. We saw cases of them up front too as we were coming in. Don't know if those were for sale or if those were just there for display. And then you've got a whole 50 years of Corvettes right here. Look at this. This whole rack of Corvettes through the years, going all the way up to 2003. All kinds of I actually remember some of these. Those were Avon bottles that you could buy with men's cologne in them, and you'd set them up on the nose of it, and the back of it would actually screw off, like on this red one right here. That tire would screw off, and you would shake out a little bit of cologne, put on, and then once you got through using the cologne, then you had a collector's item. And you've got a whole bunch of them right here. I remember my dad used to use some of those. My mom bought a lot of Avon through the years, and he had those. And I think I even kept a few of them myself. It seemed like I remember a Jeep that was a cologne bottle originally, and I had it on the shelf for a long time when I was growing up. And we got all kinds of engines down here. Very interesting. It looks like you've got trucks, there's a Budweiser truck over there, and Anheuser-Busch yeast. That's yeast. I guess all of these are Anheuser-Busch trucks and all. I don't know what this is. I'm thinking it may be a Ford Model A, but it sure does have some big windows and a big cabin right there. Very unusual. We'll see what the plaque says over here. Oh, I'm sorry. It is a 1920 Buick Model K647. Model K647, and it's a 1920. But there's the plaque. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can stop it if you want to and read it. They do have a collection of very rare automobiles. Boy, this is a beauty here. My goodness, I was just noticing how shiny this one is. This is a 1931 Hupmobile Coupe. Hupmobile Century 6, 1931. Get it in frame here. And the price was $995. Not as expensive as that other car we saw over a little bit earlier. But yeah, that's still pretty expensive compared to the Ford Model T's, early ones. Now here is an original, I guess, Ford Model T two-seater. I don't know. I couldn't find much information about it. I was looking to see. They had a little stand over there with a bunch of pictures and the last owner of it, and but yeah, I take it that this is a Model T, and here's this book, scrapbook basically, of the person who owned it, and some pictures of it, but it doesn't give it much information, but much history of the car itself or nothing. I don't know that much about it. That's about all I could find out about it. Here's a Laurel and Hardy, I guess, photo op. A perfect day. Here's an all wooden car. Now it may roll, but I'm sure that it does not run on its own power, because even the motor looks like it's carved out of wood, I'm sure. And don't ask me what model it is. I'm not real familiar with this. I don't really have a clue as to what model this is at all. Now here's another car with Laurel and Hardy in it. And this one is also made completely out of wood, as the sign says right there. This is an all-wooden car, including the motor and tires. Now, I don't know that this actually runs, but it looks like it's got some running parts and plugs and stuff on it, electrical components, wires and stuff. But I couldn't tell you it actually runs on its own power if the motor block is made out of wood. Now here's a 1935 Mathis MY4S, and it was actually made in France, as you can see from the plaque here. This is very unusual. This is only one of, where did I see it at? One, I think, of only 4 of these Mathis cars in the United States. And you can read this whole plaque here of the history of the car. Is very unusual. But now, as you can see, it's very shiny paint, but it was done with automobile grade paint out of rattle cans decades ago, it said, and it was donated to the museum. And so this is only, I think they said it was only one of 4 known Mathis cars in the United States. Here is a 1948 Woody, Ford Woody, and this is very nice, and I'm sure that is real wood. Now, I've saw some videos on Woodies, and Woodies are very hard to keep up because you have to constantly treat the wood to keep it from splitting and rotting and stuff over time. And that's one reason why they quit making Woodies. But they're very unusual and very rare these days to find Woodies. And usually you only see them in I don't know, car museums. So that's very unusual to see a true Woody. Here's a Georgia Legends NASCAR driver, Bill Elliott, one of his original cars that he drove for McDonald's. And yeah, one of the things I read on the plaques that's inside the windshield is his cars have certainly been colorful through the years during the time he was driving for McDonald's. Now here's another racer over here that I came across that looks like it was used on local dirt tracks and regional racetracks. But here's a late model. It's powered by a 355 cubic inch engine. Here's another one. This is this is crazy. This is a 1975 Ford Pinto wagon that looks like it's been made into a racer at one time, but it's got a metallic flake paint scheme on it with, as you can see, flames going back on the side. This is just crazy. This is great. I love this. North Georgia Paint and Body Shop. This is, yeah. I guess they took it out to the quarter mile, it looks like. Yeah. Get on back here to the back of it. Yeah, there's the parachute. But man, that's cool. That'd have been something to see that going down the quarter mile, the drag strip, seeing that thing. That's great. Now here's another very unusual car. Is a Studebaker 1964 Studebaker Avanti, and as you can see from the plaque right here, I saw one of these actually over at another museum in Calhoun, Georgia, and or Cartersville. Can't remember which one, but one of those. And yeah, this is probably a very rare car right here. I think it was built as a sports car, but a four-passenger sports car. Now here's an unusual car. I wouldn't say great unusual. Ford Fiesta. Yeah, this was produced, I think, back in the 80s. I remember those. I remember those very well. In fact, I'm not sure, but I may have had one of those. Me and my ex had one of those years ago. And yeah, this is a 1989 Ford Fiesta. Original price was $7,940. Yeah, very inexpensive car. It didn't last too long though either. 1985 Humvee, probably one of the originals that the military used. More cases of model trucks over here. And Matchbox cars over here too. Looks like all of these are NASCAR race car Matchbox cars. Yeah, these Humvees were massive, absolutely massive. I never realized how massive these Humvees were. These were probably twice as big as the original Jeeps that the military used for so many years since World War II. And I think these actually, the Humvees, came out somewhere in the 80s. If I'm not badly mistaken, it was somewhere in the 80s. It might have been in 85, which this one is. And it was one of the originals. But I've talked to some military people who's rode in these things, and they said they rode like a brick, basically. Rode like a brick. But they would go anywhere, and they would haul a lot of equipment and stuff in them too, a lot more than the original Jeeps that they used to use. Getting into the very, very small cars, I call them Matchbox cars because they were so small, or Cracker Box, whatever you want to say. But this one here is a 2012. Wow, that came out in 2012. Snyder ST600. Original price approximately $8,000. Year 2012. Yeah, I don't know where it was actually produced. Oh, this was produced in China by Dezhou Fulu Vehicle Industry Company in China. That's what this is. This comes from China. A three-wheel. Yeah, I'm not sure that's something that I'd want to drive myself. We Americans like our big cars and trucks, SUVs. 1986 Nissan 300ZX Turbo. Now these were cool cars. I had a friend who just absolutely loved Nissan Zs, and I think he had 2 or 3 of them while I was working with him. He was one I worked with. He would, a lot of times the one that he would drive to work, he would peel out in the parking lot with. Crazy. And he was a big old tall dude. We called him Stretch because he was so tall. He was like 6 foot or over. And you can imagine someone that tall sitting in a car that small. But he loved them things. A 1958 Austin Healey Sprite. Now here is the original military Jeep. This is the 1952 Willys M38 Jeep here. There's the plaque for it. But that's what people remember the most right there, is those type of vehicles that the military used. And of course that's where our modern day Jeeps come from. The iconic front end that is still the newer vehicles these days, Jeeps, are patterned after. Now here's some other military vehicles, not Jeeps, obviously. This one here is an Audi. DKW Munga, however you pronounce it, I know I'm butchering that. Auto Union DKW Munga. Top speed 50 miles an hour. Not very fast. And then here is a 1944 Volkswagen Type 82. I'm sure it was probably produced for the German military at one time. And then you got several BMWs over, or a couple I should say. The BMWs over here. And here's a S10 1997, I think, an S10. But the unusual thing about it is a electric 1997. Yes, I was right. Trying to remember that. 1997 Chevy S10, and they produced a limited amount of these to address the growing problem of environmental concerns back then, and a step in the evolution of electric vehicles. Now back here is where they're stored their massive amounts of batteries, but it looks like they're just regular batteries as best I can tell. You can look up in there and see that. A whole bunch of batteries. I had to use 3/4 of the bed for battery storage for this thing. Now here is the iconic Volkswagen, most people call them Bugs, but it's actually, the official name is Beetle. But I had a neighbor when I was growing up who had several of these, and they were like the old blue color that they a lot of times come out with back then in the 70s, early mid 70s. And I remember him having quite a few of those, and he seemed to really like them. Looks like the museum has quite a few bicycles and peddlers down through there. Children's pedal cars, and a few motorcycles over here as well, as you can see. Looks like a chopper right there. I'm not sure if that's a child's bike or what. It's a motorcycle. It's definitely a motorcycle. You can't hardly see it too good, but I'll try to get it as best I can here. But yeah, and you've got some bigger motorcycles over here as well. Yeah, that looks like a little child's motorcycle right there, a dirt bike. And Triumph, there's a Triumph over there. Pedal Car Avenue. Here's a little British-made Triumph, 1975 Triumph TR6. There's the plaque for it. British flag right on the front of it. See what they are. Here, 1961 Morse Minor 1000, 1960 Renault Dolphin, in 1959 Mako 500 are the three that are up here. Okay, that's the 1969 Renault Dolphin electric. And then that one is the minor over here. And the one that I was calling Fiat, I don't think it's a Fiat after all. It looks very similar to a Fiat, but it's not. Now here's a Mini Cooper that's all decked out in flames on the side. Here's a plaque on the windshield talking about its history. This Mini Cooper wasn't just a standard Mini Cooper. This was actually built by Jesse James and his team on Monster Garage, Discovery Channel's Monster Garage, back in the early 2000s, and they had to build it a snowmobile machine, if you can imagine, with a Mini Cooper and $5,000. So they put two complete snowmobile, as you probably saw in the plaque that I took a screenshot of right there, and 800 Polaris snowmobile assemblies, each with 151-inch by 12-inch track. The driver steers the vehicle by individually controlling the snowmobile tracks, as done with military tanks, and the skis that the team put on the front of this car. Each twin-cylinder, two-stroke Polaris vertical escape engine produces 200 horsepower for a total of 400 horsepower. They raced it against Richard Petty's 2004 Polaris Pro X700 sled, but Petty won. This is out in Wyoming on Petty's ranch out there, and that is Richard Petty, the legendary race car driver. So this has some history to it for sure. This is a cool car here. This is a 2022 Ford GT 500. Original price $150,000, and that's only 3 years old. My gosh. Wow. I knew those things were expensive, but I did not know or realize that they were that expensive. Of course, it looks like a Cobra, a Ford Cobra too, because it's got a Ford Cobra emblem on it. Here's a 1967 Mustang GT 500. Same model as this one over here, but a 1967 version of it. And then a 1968 Shelby GT 350. There's been so many variants of the Ford Mustang through the years, it's hard to keep up with them. And another one over here, and it's a 2006 Mustang GT-H. And it's a Shelby. Here's the plaque for it. And then a 2007 Mustang Shelby GT. These are some very high dollar cars. And then an IROC Z. Now that was something back in the 80s. Everybody loved to have one of those IROCs. I remember those from back in my day. 1966 Chevelle Malibu SS. That was the same year I was born. Getting into the muscle cars here, this is a 1970 Buick Grand Sport. I remember some of my friends building those up in the 1970s, and you could get these cheap and get parts for them cheap back then and fix them up. Can't do it these days because they've become so popular and all. The 1970 Pontiac Trans Am. I remember those too. Those were very popular with kids my age back then. Extremely popular. They really became popular whenever Smokey and the Bandit came out. And those were black with the Screaming Eagle on the front of it, gold and black on it. Those were cool cars back then, for sure. Now, these were the old Jeeps that I remember when I was growing up. This is 1980 Jeep CJ5. And I remember these quite well. I had a friend whose parents had probably 2 or 3 of them over the years, and they loved them. His mom drove one quite a bit. I remember riding around with them when I'd go over and stay at his house and all sometimes. Those were cool. Of course, you can't get them cheap these days, not like you could back then. Nobody really wanted them because they rode so rough and they had so much wind noise because of the soft top on them. But nowadays, people like them. They take the soft top off and they'll take them out on trails and stuff. We have in fact, from where I'm at in Pickens County, Jasper, they have each year, the actual Labor Day weekend, they actually have what they call a Jeep Fest, where they open up trails around the county and they go out and take these Jeeps through those trails and stuff. It's amazing what people will spend on these Jeeps just to go out and tear them up. The old square body Fords, F-150s, and they're beginning to become popular nowadays because they're so reliable. People get them, and you can get them fairly reasonably still right now and fix them up, and they're just so reliable. Here's something you don't see much of anymore, the old International Scout. This is 1973 International Scout 2. And I remember trying to learn to drive a straight shift on an International Scout, similar to this, out in Kansas. My dad was originally from Kansas, and I was out there with my brother. He was always big into helping with wheat harvest out there during the summer months, and they had one like this, similar to this, that was a straight shift, and he was trying to teach me how to drive it. Didn't get it too good then, but I did learn years later how to drive a straight shift, and I actually had a couple of straight shifts through the years and drove them quite a bit. But nowadays it's just much easier to drive a automatic, and you don't have to worry about trying to eat or drink something and changing gears at the same time. Here we got a Lamborghini, and it's a 2007 Lamborghini Murcielago LP 640, $345,000. It's a little bit out of my range, but it is pretty cool. And here we have a whole collection of red Corvettes, little red Corvettes, and of course a white one over here. These are all sports cars through here. You got a Ferrari, a couple of them here, and then the iconic 1981 DeLorean DMC-12, which was used as the car in Back to the Future, 1985, starting then. But from what I understand, these things were not the best cars. They looked cool, but it was hard to get into them and out of, and they were underpowered. And the ones, whenever they shut down production, there was a whole bunch of parts, from what I understand, to actually make the cars, produce the cars. But they started up production, I think a few years ago, may have been shut down by now again, but they started up production again, but instead of putting the original motor back in it, they went with a more powerful engine. But at least that's what I heard. And there's the plaque for it. Here's a 1939 George Barris Custom Mercury 8. Of course, you can tell that the top has been chopped and dropped on it. And it is customized. Looks like the back end has been dropped as well, so it kind of slants uphill. But absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So it looks like it got fold down headlamps on the A-pillars right there. And it's called the Shangri-La. And of course we exit through the gift shop. And this is just outside the door. And all of this stuff, I take it, is for sale. There was a whole rack of baseball cards back there. Old baseball cards. But yeah, they got some old vintage stuff through here for sure. X-Men Unlimited, Iron Man, Deadpool, DVDs. I actually have old comic books through here. All kinds of comic books. Looks like some sort of electronic gadgets here too. Video cassette player. Looks like a VHS player, but with its own built-in screen that folds down. That's pretty neat. Right there. But yeah, all cameras. Looks like all Instamatic reflex. Probably a 35mm camera of some sort. Books over here. This is not just a gift shop, but like an antique mall. It looks like you got all kinds of spices and pickles and stuff over here. Chipotle peach salsa, peach jelly, strawberry jelly. Spices over here. Yeah, a little old-time stove here too. Looks like they have an old varsity tray here. That's neat. $18.95. I wonder if they actually used that at the varsity at one time. It'd been neat if they did, or if that was just a collector's item. As you can tell, I forgot to do an outro to the video the day I filmed this, but in any case, thanks so much for watching to the end. I hope you enjoyed our tour of the Miles Through Time Automotive Museum in Clarksville, Georgia. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up as it helps with the algorithm of the video. Also, if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to the channel for more similar content. Again, thanks so much for watching. God bless, and we will see you in our next video.